Hello, my name is Markus Jung from Fernstudiuminfos.de and I would like to welcome you to today's live interview. It's in English because I have an English-speaking guest. Kirsty Major is here with me. She offers online English lessons and I work together with her to improve my English-speaking skills. Hi Kirsty, I'm glad to have you here with me today.
Hi, it's good to be here.
Yes, for the beginning, please introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Kirsty Major and I live in the UK, not far from London. I have two businesses. I'm focusing on one of them today because that's the most relevant. It's an English language teaching business, which I started in 2012. And I work online, so that's not something that recently happened. I've been working online since 2012, offering language tuition to adults who want to improve their English.
Thank you for your introduction. How did the idea of English with Kirsty, your business, come up? What were the steps to set up your own business and go into self-employment, and what did you do before?
Okay, before that, it's quite a while ago now because I set up my business in 2012, but before that I was a communications manager. And I think that really helped me because some of the problems that I've noticed people having is that they go to business English courses and then they find that some of the language is a bit outdated. So it was good for me to be working somewhere else before teaching English because I speak English, but I've also been working in English speaking environments. I've always wanted to work with languages. Right from a small child, languages were my favorite thing. I learned only two at school, which I know for people in other parts of mainland Europe isn't very many, but German was my favorite subject at school. So I'd always been looking for a way to use that at work, but at first I was just told that I had to go into translation, which is an interesting career, but it isn't the one that the path that I wanted to follow. And also I didn't want to go into a purely sales-based role because that isn't what would make me happy either. So I'd been following this career, working in communications, but I'd always had this idea that I'd like to do something with people because some of the work that I was doing at the time was very much information-based, whereas I wanted more of a people-based role. And I wanted to use my languages. So then I understood that actually the things I was doing in my spare time were more enjoyable for me. I had a lot of language exchanges because I'm also interested in learning languages. And I realized that my friends were learning from me. They were able to understand when I was explaining information about English, about grammar, or giving tips on what had worked for me. And I began to wonder whether this was something that I could do as a career. I thought it would be a really interesting challenge. At that time, not so many people were working online, but I knew that was the way that I wanted to go. And I wanted to make a difference. So I took some courses about teaching English and I took some courses about setting up your own business. But a lot of the things that I kind of discovered were when I did actually set up my own business, because sometimes you can't anticipate the questions that you're going to have and the problems and how you solve them. So I left my job as a communications manager and started out on my own with English with Kirsty. And that was 2012. So yeah, quite a lot's happened since then.
And have you ever regretted it?
No, I mean, there are times when things that I thought would be really easy turned out to be more challenging, but there are also really good moments, like when you know that people are putting things that they've learned into practice, or that somebody applied for a job and got it, or somebody said they had a really good meeting in English because they didn't feel so stressed about speaking. So no, there are challenges that I hadn't anticipated. I had to kind of learn all about marketing and things like that because that's not my background. But also it's introduced me to so many interesting people who each have their own stories and challenges with learning that we fixed, and I think it's been a really good decision for me.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, I'm also self-employed and I made the same experience. It's good to do the stuff you really want to do and nobody tells you what to do. I think that's one of the big advantages there is.
And you're able to decide what direction you want to take your business in, to try new things, and you don't have to follow other people's decisions that you think may not work out. If something goes wrong, it's on you. But at the same time, you have a lot of flexibility, a lot of autonomy, which I really like.
Yeah, exactly. I see it the same way. You also already mentioned you are not just a language teacher, but also a language learner. And how have your own experiences as a language learner helped you to become a better English trainer?
Yeah, I think it's really good if you are working in language teaching that you do learn at least one other language, because then you've got your own experience. You can understand how students feel, not in every situation because we're all different, but I can certainly relate to some of the difficulties that my students have. So I think that helps in itself. I speak German and Turkish. My Turkish isn't as good as my German, but those are my two other languages, and then I speak a few words of a number of other languages. But the other thing is that I'm visually impaired, so I do things differently sometimes, and it doesn't mean that the standards are any lower. I have to get to the same end result, the same goals, but I reach them in a different way. So some more visual tasks, I will complete those tasks in a different way, and I think that's helped me to be really creative with solutions. And I see my students in the same way. So I do have a couple of visually impaired students, but most of my students aren't. But we're all different, and we all think in different ways, and we all need different things. So I like to look at that when I start working with somebody, so that doesn't mean you lower your standards or you change your expectations. But because I work one-to-one primarily, I can really look at what somebody needs and how they learn best. So that doesn't mean what they're good at, but it means what strategies and techniques work for them, because that's going to help them to be more to learn more effectively and to get results faster, and results that will last as well. So I do make my materials accessible for any other students that I have who have visual impairments, but it's also about looking at how do people need that information to be given to them, or what strategies work for them. That's things that have worked for me or maybe other students, and trying to build up a list of things that people can do that will be most effective for them.
Okay, so this perspective or this helps you sometimes to look at it from this angle, to choose another way, perhaps also to learn.
Yeah, and I think it's not just about my visual impairment. It can be also, I'm an introvert as well, and I think a lot of particularly the speaking activities for language learners can be very much geared towards people who are extroverts and who like talking to lots of people, and that doesn't work for me. I've found other ways, like I mentioned already, that I like language exchanges, which is a one-to-one setup where you're learning the other person's language and they're learning yours. And I find them to be a lot more effective than something like a big language meetup, because I wouldn't really enjoy that in my own language, so I'm not going to enjoy it in another language. So if you're an introvert, you perhaps learn in a slightly different way, or you would enjoy other activities more. So I think it's all about, getting to know a person and seeing what's going to work for them.
Yes, I'm also an introvert, and for me, this one-to-one setting was perfect. I think I wouldn't have chosen it if it was a group setting for the beginning. So you have many experiences as an English learner, as an English teacher. What are your qualifications and your practical knowledge as an English teacher?
Okay, so when I decided I wanted to have a career change, I did a basic teaching English certificate. A lot of people have them. It wasn't really sufficient on its own. So then I did a teaching business English diploma, because I was clear that I wanted to focus on working with adults and not, for example, working with young people or children, because I prefer working with adults. So I thought business English would be a good fit there. A lot of my knowledge I also draw on what I did in my communications role as well, because my work there was focused on helping people to get their message across in the right way. So that's not so much official, like formal qualifications, but a lot of what I do is based on the work that I used to do in communications as well. And I also have a certificate in German proficiency, because I do a lot of work with German customers. So I got my C2 and the CEFR for German as well.
Thank you. And what courses do you offer?
My most popular course is the one-to-one course, whereby people can choose how many lessons they want to have, and they can also add to that if they use them all up and find that they want some more. But it's basically I design a program for each person, looking at what they want to learn, whether that's speaking. A lot of people are quite nervous about speaking English, so I have a lot of speaking conversation courses. It could be something business English related, whether that's the specifics of talking about your business in English, or it could be the more spontaneous conversations you have to have with people. So sometimes people are quite confident about talking about their products and services, but then when they have to go for coffee with someone afterwards, that's more stressful for them because you can't predict what they're going to say. Also, improving vocabulary, grammar. I use my own grammar materials, so I can explain grammar concepts or answer questions in English or German. I do have a business English course for people who want a bit more structure to their course. And then there's a grammar course that's specifically for grammar, nothing else. And then there's a writing course for people who don't want to speak. They just want to work on their writing. So that's not proofreading. That is another service that I offer. But the writing course is about looking for a number of things that you can improve each time so that you really understand, because I think sometimes there's an issue whereby English teachers mark this is wrong, this is the answer, but they don't understand why, so that the learner doesn't understand why. And that's a problem, because then you'll make exactly the same mistake next time. And I don't like to work like that. So with the writing course, we just focus on a few things each time, and when they're sorted out, then move on to something else.
So a big variety, and also you look at the individual needs of the person you are working with.
Yeah, and then there's two more. There's a CV and interview course, which is, so I don't write your English CV for you. You have to do that yourself. But I can give feedback on it in terms of the content and the language use. And the interview course is helping people to prepare for interviews in English. I did work in HR for a while, so I have provided that kind of training for other staff. And I thought that's something I could also offer, because a lot of the reasons why people want to improve their English is to apply for jobs. So there's the interview course. And finally, a collaboration that I'm doing with another business owner in Germany. We have our conversation club. So that is a group program. We meet 3 times a month and we have English conversation. So it's quite relaxed, quite laid back for people who don't necessarily want to have English lessons, but they do want to practice their English in a relaxed and friendly setting.
And then you moderate these so that everybody has to speak in this, or is it possible to hide during this group courses?
I think we try to keep the balance. So if you really want to hide and you want to listen for the first couple of sessions, you can. We'll give you the opportunity to speak if you want to. So we try to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to say something if they want to, but we're not going to make you give a presentation or something like that. It's quite open and quite friendly. So I think even the most quiet people that we have in the group have said more recently, and that they start to come out of their shells, because it's not that scary. Everybody's in the same position. There are 2 people who have English as their first language there, so we can help. It's primarily German speakers as well, so we both speak German and can help with vocabulary, but everyone else is in the same position as a learner, and sometimes that helps.
Yes, I also think so. What level of English do I need to participate in your courses? In Germany, I think most people have had at least some lessons in school, but is it also possible to start from the beginning? For example, for people who are a bit older, I know the generation of my parents, they didn't have English at school. Or what do I need to participate?
That's fine. I say as long as you speak German, then you can come in at any level. Because if you are a complete beginner, it's helpful for me to be able to communicate with you and not to rely on your English to be able to do that, because you may not have that level of English yet. It's because I do have, I use both languages in my lessons if you are a German speaker, because I find that can be helpful. Not so much for advanced and intermediate learners, because the goal there is to use as much English as possible. But I think for beginners, sometimes people want to be able to ask questions if they don't understand something, or to understand why things have to be done in a certain way. So I do use German in my lessons too. So if you're a German speaker, you can be a beginner or an advanced learner or anything in between. If you don't speak German, then maybe kind of lower intermediate upwards is fine.
Okay, thank you. And there is a first question in the chat from a Muddlehead. He said hi before, and now his question is, based on your experience, how much effort regarding time is required to level up from B1 to C1, considering having a motivated candidate?
I think that's a good point. Motivation is really the key, because if you want to make a jump like that of 2 levels, you do have to put the time in and to be prepared to do that. It's really hard to give an answer to that because there are so many other factors, like how much time the individual has, and whether we need to kind of go over some older ground to enable the candidate to make that jump. How much time they're able to spend on lessons if they're thinking of doing that. So sorry, I can't give you an exact answer because there are too many factors. But I would say that if you are prepared to put the work in and to find other ways to improve your English as well, things that you can do on your own. So maybe reading, watching something, listening to something, all these things. If you do those things, then it's definitely possible to make that jump within a reasonable time frame. But I don't want to commit to an exact time frame because it depends from person to person and how quickly people learn, what resources they like to use, what they have available.
Yes, do you think it would take some years, or is it possible even in shorter times?
I don't think it would need to be years, but if you're motivated, if you have time, it could be months rather than years, but everyone is different.
Yes, of course. But I think this will give some idea of how long it will take if you are really motivated and, as you said, put enough time into it. Motherhead gives the answer. It's fine, thanks for him. So I think this helped him. Okay. You already spoke about people who are an introvert or about nervous. What if I am anxious about speaking English? How can you help me there?
I think that's perfectly normal. And I would start by saying, I know how that feels, because whatever language I'm learning, so first with German and then Turkish, it's always my last skill to develop. So I like writing and reading and listening, and then I have to speak. And I find that quite difficult. So if somebody else feels like that, firstly, I know how that feels. I know how it feels to be sat in a meeting in Germany, hoping that nobody will talk to me because then I'll have to speak German. I'm not like that now, but I do remember when I was. And I know that it takes time and practice to get over these fears. So there are certainly things that you can help. If you improve your vocabulary, you'll have a bigger vocabulary, and then you'll be able to speak more easily because you'll have more words to draw on. But ultimately, if you want to become better at speaking, you do need to do some speaking. And if you're going to do that, it's better to do it in an environment where it's safe to make mistakes. And that's what I can offer. So I'm not going to laugh at you if you make a mistake. I'm a teacher. I'm here to help. I think sometimes people make the mistake. They go into a meeting that's really important, for example, and they're already stressed because it's an important meeting, an important presentation, and they haven't spoken any English in the last couple of weeks, and they expect to suddenly be able to start speaking fluently. And that's putting a lot of pressure on themselves. Whereas if you practice and you improve your skills in an environment where it's not so critical, if you make a mistake, it doesn't matter. We'll just, talk about the mistake and move on. Then that can really help people to grow in confidence. And the more comfortable you feel doing it in that kind of environment, the easier it will be to use your language in other situations where it is more important that you get it right.
Yeah, thanks. And I can confirm this. I was quite nervous before our first online meeting and much calmer at the end.
That's really good. That's what I like to hear.
What other technical requirements and what ways to take these online courses do you offer?
I think in recent months, a lot of people have been spending more time online, whether that's for work or to keep in touch with friends and family. So really, you need a stable internet connection because the lessons take place online. So you need to have that good, reliable internet connection. It's good to have somewhere where you won't be disturbed. That's not so much a technical requirement, but it will certainly help you, because if people are coming in and asking you things, then you won't be able to pay attention to the lesson and to make the best use of the time that you're paying for. I don't only use one platform, so I've got a number of platforms that we can use, like Zoom has become quite popular recently, and Skype and FaceTime, and a number of different platforms. So I'm not restricting people to which platform they have to use. So really, you can just use your laptop or your tablet or your phone, whatever works for you. There aren't a lot of requirements, really. You don't have to download anything. We just have to agree on what platform you would like to use.
You're quite flexible there. And is it also possible to do it audio only? For example, if you have a low bandwidth?
Yeah, I've got a couple of people who do that because they live in the countryside and their internet is not quite as reliable. So yeah, we have audio only, the same platforms as I've mentioned, but we just don't use the camera. And some people actually like doing that. I worked with somebody who made a lot of telephone calls rather than video calls, and he said that he wanted to do audio only sometimes because it's a lot easier for him when he can see the other person, but in his work that wasn't always possible, so he wanted to practice that skill as well.
Yes, so this was a live environment for him he is used to use. Okay, so you mentioned earlier that you offer more than these courses. What else do you offer there?
I have a podcast, so if people like podcasts, you can look for English with Kirsty wherever you get your podcasts. I offer that, so that's not typically like a language learner podcast. We do talk about language learning, but we also talk about communication, communication skills, language learning tips. So it's not like this is all the vocabulary that you'll need for meetings kind of podcast. It's conversations with other business owners who are perhaps using other languages or who have got information to share that will help language learners. So it's they're not usually that long. They're around 20 minutes each episode. And if you would prefer to watch them on YouTube, there is nothing actually to watch because it's a podcast, it's audio, but I do upload the episodes to YouTube as well. And I have a blog, and my other business is about communication skills. So I offer some proofreading services and some accessibility services for people to make their websites more accessible for people who use screen readers. So a number of things really, but I guess the main focus here is for the English learning. But if people are interested in the other services, I know you've put my other website link on the video page.
Yes, so there are many ways you are active, you communicate. And what are your plans for the future?
I was thinking about my plans. My immediate plans, I've got a new course launching for small businesses and making their products and services more accessible to visually impaired customers. I've got that launching in October. Longer term, I would like to just to kind of work in more industries, work with more people, because the thing that really gives me job satisfaction is seeing change. So for me, it's not just like ticking boxes, it's actually seeing people using what they've learned in everyday life. Whether that is because they're studying. So I have some people who are working with me, they're studying and they're part of their courses are in English. So they need to improve their English for that. Or whether it's for the workplace, or even if they want to travel and having some like basic vocabulary has helped them to have a better holiday. You know, all these things that are things that people have learned in the lessons with me, and then they've gone out and it's changed their experience in some way of the English-speaking world, and that really gives me job satisfaction. So just to continue to meet really interesting people as well, because they're learning English from me, but I also enjoy meeting such interesting people. I work in terms of English teaching, I work mainly with people in Germany, Austria and Switzerland. yeah, I really enjoy my job. So to continue doing that.
Yeah, thank you. And where can the viewers who perhaps want to work together with you find further information and contact you?
You can find me in a number of places, really. I know you've put both of my links up. You'll find all the information about learning English on englishwithkirsty.com. And that has a newsletter as well. So if you sign up for the newsletter, you can find out about any new services or offers or things that are going on. I have a Facebook page, which is, if you look for English with Kirsty, you'll find it. On Twitter, I'm English with K, because English with Kirsty was too long for Twitter, so I have to be English with K. That's my private Twitter, so occasionally you'll see things on there about golden retrievers or other random things. But I do also post information about learning languages. And I'm on Xing and LinkedIn as well.
Right, so many ways to find you, and I have included the links to your two websites in the video description. And I see there is one more question from Muddlehead. I think we can include this. What is the least amount of hours your student need to put in per week to see progress?
Yeah, again, it's quite hard to quantify because people learn at different speeds. So you could have somebody who looks at something once and then, okay, I understand it, I can move on, or somebody who needs to practice something a few times and then they will understand it. So again, I don't feel that I've been massively helpful because it's very difficult to quantify that. And also it depends how much progress you want to have, because if you only sign up for a lesson, for example, and have an hour with me and only do that, you will still make progress because you'll learn something in the lesson. But if you then go away and do some additional tasks in your own time, you'll make faster progress because you'll be able to learn from all those other individuals or other sources as well, and to practice what you're learning. Because if you learn with me now and then you come back next week, you may have forgotten it if you hadn't done anything in the meantime to embed that knowledge and to practice what you've learned. So we may have to go over it again, and that will detract from your time with me because we're going over old ground. Whereas if you had used that and practiced it, and then you can come back, you may have more questions, I can help with those, and we can move on to something new. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes, and I also found it helpful that you gave me feedback after our lessons, and that was another time I repeated the content of our lesson, and 2 times I was working with English if we had a weekly meeting. And yes, do you generally have any tips what you can do additionally with what without much work? For example, do you recommend watching English-speaking movies?
Yeah, it depends what you want to achieve. So if you want to improve your listening skills, then I would say something like a podcast, or movies are okay, but sometimes people become over-reliant on the subtitles. That is okay if you want to improve your vocabulary, but it's not so good for improving your listening skills because you're reading. So it's good not to, if you want to have them, then maybe have them 75% of the time, then 70, then 60, and reduce that because there aren't subtitles in everyday life situations. So movies are good, but also think about the type of thing you want to watch, because something like a documentary is going to be a lot slower and a lot easier to understand. If you go straight for a movie with lots of fast speech and lots of action, that will be more difficult to understand. So if you haven't done much of that kind of thing before, then start with something relatively easy and build up rather than diving in straight at the deep end of the swimming pool. So yeah, there are lots of things you can do. I think it's good to have things that you can build into your everyday life. So if you use social media, then like some pages in English so you automatically see them, or join some groups about things that you care about where people are speaking English, so you don't have to go and look for them. They're already there in your feed and you can contribute or read if you want to. I found that with my Turkish, because my weakest skill is my speaking, I have found some Turkish speakers who want to learn English, and we commit to spending some time together. So they're not teachers, and I don't expect them to be able to explain the finer grammar points of Turkish. It's more about having a conversation. So we have a virtual coffee together and we talk. The first meeting in the week is in one language, and then we swap. And that kind of thing really makes you do it, because I might think, oh, I can't be bothered with Turkish today. But if I know that I've got this meeting coming up, it will motivate me to actually do it. So sometimes just having somebody like a learning buddy that you've already agreed with them that you're going to do something, and then you'll be letting them down if you didn't. So sometimes that kind of thing helps if there's a skill that you really don't want to improve but know that you need to, because if you don't, you'll end up in the position where like I did the first time I was learning Turkish, my reading and writing and listening were quite advanced, and my speaking really wasn't, and it held me back. So it's a good thing to avoid if you can.
Yes, so if you want to learn speaking, you have to speak in a way or other.
Unfortunately.
Yes. Okay, here's one more question from Esther Riff. She asked, what do you think about the effort English method of A. Hoch? I don't know this.
I don't either. I'm sorry. I don't know who that is.
I also have never heard of this method. It's written A.J. Hoge. So you don't know it either.
I don't know. I can have a look, and I can write an answer in the chat when I've researched who or what that is. But at the moment, I can't give you an answer.
Yes, perhaps if you find something out, and I will also have a look, then we can add this to the comment section on YouTube.
Okay.
Okay, so I think we are at the end of this interview, and I thank you for your time, and it was very interesting for me.
Oh, thank you.
Have a nice evening.
You too.
Thank you. Yes, and also thanks to all the viewers for watching the interview. If you have any further questions, please feel free to use the comment section. And if you like the video, please give me a thumbs up now, subscribe to my channel, and activate the bell to be notified about upcoming interviews on the topic of distance learning.